This week I'm going to be reviewing issue 19 of the Imperium Magazine. As you guys know, I'm a little behind. A lot of that's to do with stuff that happened over Christmas and then sorting it out and fixing it. But anyway, this week's issue we're getting even more scenery. And it's the same scenery. We've had 3 parts of this so far. So sadly it's not going to be an exciting issue. Either way, it's still nice scenery. It's not bad value for money. You're paying less for it than it would cost to buy the whole set. This is the 3rd box out of a box of 3, and it's solid scenery. If you want to hear me talk more about it, go back and check out the channel, the videos on the channel. I believe the last one was issue 17. I'm not sure which one it was before that. But yep, there's a lot of stuff about scenery. So let's get into the magazine. Signed by Ian, our liege lord there. Now we've got first page. You've got the Manufactorum battle zone, smog-filled industrial centres. The Imperium relies on its industrial worlds and their manufactorums to provide the arms and goods that supply its armies and citizens. For this reason, many of these planets have found themselves targeted by the Emperor's foes and turned into the sites of brutal battles. It's then basically a nice picture in the older style, and a bunch of descriptions. You've got the Minotaurium armoured container, which is basically just a shipping container that sounds slightly posher. Cargo trains, Imperial transport vessels. That looks quite small, but A, it's far back, and B, even the smallest of vessels will have like hundreds of crew, so and maybe that one's just cargo ship prepares to land. Soon the vessel will be loaded with goods bound for Imperial territories. So it's still pretty huge. Although smaller than a lot of our ships, smaller than a lot of actual cargo vessels that you get on Earth. Just taking you've got a little one there for size. That ship's practically got to be diddy. Especially considering some of the Imperium ships are hundreds of miles long, massive cargo freighters and stuff like that. Galvanic servo hauler cranes, which is cool because there actually is a model available of them, so that's pretty nifty. We've got a battle record. The refinery moon of the refinery moon of Magaria is home to several large manufactorum sectors, creating a setting for your own battles by naming one of these sectors and recording key information on the goods it supplies to the Imperium. As in previous issues, we've got some more roll charts, and again, love these little roll charts. You've got D6 chart for the sector name, like Quadrant Prometheus, Fabricatum Magaria, and things like that. And good charts, you've got Refined Promethium, military explosives, laser focusing crystals, bionic enhancements, hardened armor plates, and Medicae oxygen supplies, which is all pretty cool. And at least 3 of those would explode. For anyone not familiar, Promethium is basically jet fuel plus napalm kind of mixed together. It powers a lot of the Imperium's more basic vehicles, because a lot of the Imperium's vehicles are basically petrol powered. They're basically combustion engines or steam engines that burn whatever chemical resources are to hand, but the preferred fuel is Promethium, either using it directly or mixing it in with other fuels to make them more effective and more efficient. So it does get used kind of universally across the Imperium. It's also used in most of the Imperial flamethrowers, although as a lot of the backgrounds will tell you, various planets and that don't have access to it, so they use, again, whatever they've got to hand, so that you may get in Promethium, you may get various Promethium equivalents depending on what you've got. So that's pretty cool. It's got some pictures of some battle sectors there. So you can start off with some you can start with some cool bits and pieces. You've got some cool bits and pieces of background, and you can use it as the basis for a campaign, which I'm sure is what they intended here. Next, we've got the Space Marine Reclusium. A chapter's Reclusium is a hallowed place. Reverent silence is broken only by the chanting of chaplains, the administering of rites, and the soft footsteps of robed serfs. Shrines light its walls, filled with relics from the Brotherhood's glorious past. And it's got a nice picture of a chaplain there. Frankly, for my money, one of the best Primaris models they've brought out. I'd like to see him bring out some more chaplains, like some Space Wolf chaplains, some Imperial Fist chaplains and stuff like that, rather than all these Ultramarine lieutenants, which is the main thing. They're all Ultramarine lieutenants, which is a bit... I think there's a lot of good work they could do on chaplains. You've got one, and he looks amazing. I think there's a second or possibly even a third one. I'm not sure. I only think there's one or two. I'm not even sure about the second one, to be honest. I've seen one, I've got one. I haven't seen the second one. Somebody said to me they were bringing out more a while back, but I haven't seen them. But really, the chaplains are amazing, and the Space Marine, the Reclusiums are an important part of the Space Marine chapter. A lot of it is what binds the Space Marine chapters together, or a Space Marine chapter together in its pseudo-religious kind of thing. The Space Marines are basically warrior monks, and a lot of what keeps them driven is that faith, and that faith is something that's always been on the edge of acceptable. Even back when the Emperor was there, he didn't approve of it, but he also knew that it kind of kept a lot of the Space Marine chapters in line, because despite the fact that they were all preaching the Imperial truth, they all believed that he was super special at the very least. So that's pretty cool. And it goes on to explain a bit about that in this page here. Next, we have ranks of the Reclusium. The chaplains of the Reclusium are led by the Master of Sanctity, also known as the High Chaplain. Master of Sanctity oversees the spiritual health of the chapter by assigning chaplains to each country, and again, a country to each company. Again, for those of you who aren't aware, a chaplain is almost like a cross between a priest and a commissar, or a priest and a political officer. It's his job to keep the chapter motivated. It's his job to hear confessions. It's his job to minister to the spiritual needs, but it's also his job to punish people who show acts of cowardice. And if anybody shows even the slightest hint of chaos, it's his job to blow their brains out. So, as with most things in 40k, it has a good purpose but a nasty edge. It goes on to describe more of the chaplain hierarchy, and then we've got the chaplain war gear, which again varies between each chapter and each chaplain, but two of the things you'll see commonly are the Crozius Arcanum, which is basically a power maul or a power mace, and the Rosarius, which is an amulet with a small force generator in it. So basically it allows chaplains to basically be out there preaching and screaming loudly, and then not actually being the first person to get their head blown off, which is kind of important, yeah. Next, we have the Awakening, in search of immortality. Got a nice description here of Necrons. Necrons have slept for 60 million years, if the Aldery book, The Mournful Night, is to be believed. It's explaining how they're rising again. Master programs on Legion of Captive Slaves constructs watch over the Necrons. There's a lot of influence from bits and pieces like Dune and that, with the Iron Men and the synthetic nature of Necrons. They have big programs and computers that run over them, and in some cases control them, in some cases answer to them, but the line is supposedly a little blurred. But there's some good stuff on that in here. And what else? 1,000 enemies. It's got a nice brief description here of the infighting amongst the Necrons, how even with the internal stuff, they're still looking for stuff. They believe themselves to be above noble, most of their, most other species, and so the bigger threat, what they see as the bigger threat, is other Necrons, really. So that's pretty cool. And then we've got some descriptions of the Trarch, which is the Necron ruling council. I'm not going to go into that too much because you want to read it yourself. But again, that's all nice, solid background for the Necrons. Next, how to build the Munitarium armored container. I've been across this twice on previous ones. It's a box. It builds like a box. You can have the doors open or closed. They're more solid closed, and that's about it really. It's a box. Got some more painting. Again, these guys are doing some nice painting. I personally like to paint them black first and really dry brush them up. I think it gives them more depth, but that's entirely down to you. That looks nice. There's nothing wrong with that as a painting. As a box, they're actually fairly easy to paint, so that's pretty cool. One of the advantages of GW stuff, and I'll quickly show them that, is they have reasonably deep cut detail in most places, so you can paint them and you can do a bit of dry brushing and it will give them a textured and three-dimensional look. That goes for most GW models. Obviously you don't want to get too many layers of paint on it, and multiple thin layers is better than one thick layer, but you can get away with some very basic paint on these and get some very nice work if you choose to do them like that. It's worth noting that the inside of a spaceship often looks similar to that, and has walkways and things similar to that. So if you chose, for example, to use them as the inside of some crashed wreckage, you could. If you chose to use them to build some diorama type stuff, yeah, you could as well. This would be my 6th one of these because I collected the previous 40k part work, and I got 3 of these in that as well. But again, they're not bad. Yeah, so they're nice, they're easy to put together, and they do everything you want scenery to do. Next, we've got War in the Factorum. Again, it's referring to Magria. It's no longer, the fighting is no longer contained within the tomb complex. Now the fighting is spilled across the moon's barren surface, and turned into an all-out war. So, as much as that sucks for Magaria, Magaria, that's the name. It's all good news for us. More fighting and more violence. Let's have a look. You've got Royal Warden giving you instructions of seize the Factorum, and the Primaris Captain ambush at the nobles. So you're trying to cut the head off them before cut the head off the Necrons before they get a solid start. What else? Yeah, we've got it going through all the bits and pieces. It's advising you to use a lot of the scenery and the large red mast type battle board, which is the battle board we already have. Obviously there's another battle board which we should have gone a couple of issues back and we didn't, but that battle board isn't being used by the magazine yet, so that's fair. And the first one where the magazine uses it, that new battle board is supposed to be coming out with it. Yep, it's got all the basic descriptions of what's going on and what you should be doing, dividing into the move and shoot phase. I'm not going to go into too many details. The troops you are using. It usually has a description of the troops you're using. It's got some extra rules on grenades. You will require the data sheet for the Assault Intercessors, Primaris Captain, Royal Warden, and Necron Warriors. So those are the guys you're using. 5 Assault Intercessors and 10 Necron Warriors, and the Captain and the Warden there is. And it has a nice description of the terrain. So that looks like a nice little battle. You'll have to think a bit tactically because you've got guys that are shooting and guys that want to charge into combat. But where they've given you scenery to begin with, you've got things to hide behind basically, which is nice. What else we got? Right. On the inside of the back page, we've got a description of the next bit, which is the War on Syphos, spelled T-S-I-F-O-S, which has new models, new paints, new sceneries. In issues 21 of the Imperium, the war for the Ramesses system escalates as the conflict spreads to the fortress moon of Syphos, and the Adeptus Mechanicus join the fight. It's telling us about, here we've got a brief description of some of the Adeptus Mechanicus again. We're getting a new, more Necron-style battle map, which is cool. Actually looks very cool, and it's showing some of the scenery we're going to be getting over the next few weeks, which is you've got some of the Adeptus Mechanicus scenery there, and you've got some of the basic battle scenery there in the buildings, which, to my knowledge, do have Adeptus Mechanicus symbols on them and can be painted up as such. In issue 21 to 40, the Adeptus Mechanicus march onto the battlefield, so that sounds like we're going to be getting a lot of Mechanicus, which is cool. I mean, 20 issues worth of Mechanicus. Obviously, it's not going to be every issue. If we look at paints, scenery, and Necrons and say roughly a third of that, I don't know what third of 20 years, my brain's just failed me. 6 or 7 issues of Adeptus Mechanicus, if we're lucky, should leave us with quite a nice little Mechanicus force. And even if it's only 2 or 3 issues, which, looking at what it's showing here, it could be as little as 3 or possibly 4 issues. You've got a tech priest, you can't really see it. You've got a tech priest. You've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 Skitarii, and 3, I think they're called destroyers or something. 3 mandroids, if you're old enough to remember what that is. If we say the guys with tank tracks come in one issue, the priest comes in another issue. Given their tendencies, I'd imagine that the Skitarii are either going to come in an issue by themselves or possibly 2 issues with 5 each. You're going to be looking at least 3 or 4 issues worth of stuff if they're only giving out what's on the board there. And then you've got the scenery and the other stuff, so that's all pretty cool. It's worth noting that the Skitarii do fit in nicely with the Space Marines. In fact, given all the close assault Space Marines we've got, the Skitarii with their long-range weapons will actually fulfill a much-needed tactical role in the Space Marines, giving you some very nice ranged fire and some very nice alpha strike capabilities. They don't go on too heavily before during the rest of the game, unless the rules have changed, because I don't play Skitarii, but from what I was told about Skitarii, about people who do play them, they do a lot of damage when they flash out their special abilities, and after that they're reasonable shooters, not amazing, nothing, but that kind of alpha strike ability apparently makes them quite nice. Looking at this, you're getting okay, so next week we've got some paints, and we'll be having Khorne red and Trostlayer orange. We'll learn to use our new paints, and we'll have a command phase playthrough, which is nice. Then issues 21 and 20, you've got a squad of 10 Skitarii Rangers divided up through that, which, as I said, probably means 5 each. If what's in the pictures is all you're getting, then you'll probably get 2 more magazines. After that, one with the tech priest in, one with the other stuff in. I hope you guys enjoyed that. Sorry it's late. After this, I'm going to quickly bang out the next one because I'm late behind that. I'm just going to pause a second because this was put on for last week, put up as a prize last week, and I need to roll who did it because I forgot to do that because I'm out of practice. I rolled the dice out of all the comments on last week's one. So Stuart Hayes, this should be winging its way to you. If you can email me your address, because I delete the addresses after I send stuff out, so even if you've won previously, I won't have your address, to wargamerdaduk@hotmail, no, at gmail.com, wargamerdaduk@gmail.com. Ignore the first one, I don't know why I said that. And I hope you guys enjoyed this.